Thank you all. You're really amazing. We love seeing your aha moments, your inspirations, the insights you got this week. And we really appreciate the vulnerability when you shared the things that weren't working so well, the days that you were having trouble just moving a little bit more forward. The courage to share that when things aren't going well, and the amazing wonder of sharing things that are going well that keeps us going. And that we've heard from so many people how they feel part of a tribe, part of a community where we're all going in the same direction. So thank you so much, and great job being here. You made it through week 1, and you're ready to dive into week 2 and develop a deeper connection with your primitive brain that this is going to serve you for the rest of your life, and we're so proud of you.
I know when I had my breakthrough of moving into a relationship with my primitive brain that felt safe and collaborative, that there was a difference. I started on a journey, and I started doing the exercises. I started listening. I started going back and engaging at a different level, and that's what we're hearing from people. And if you're at that place where you're still tepid and just trying things out, congratulations to you in particular. Right now, you're doing something that is changing the relationship between you, and that's a sacred act. And it takes courage and presence to do that. And this week, we're going to be talking about safety. We're going to be talking about safety and what that means to us internally, each of us. What safety feels like, even if you don't recall ever having a feeling that you would have labeled as, oh, I feel safe right now. That's okay. We're going to have tapping to help you too, to shift into a new place.
Yeah. Safety is the prime directive of the primitive brain. It wants to keep you safe so you can keep on trucking and find a way out of the pain, find a way to feel better and live your life and reproduce and love people. And so that's why we put this at such an anchor point in the course, because if you don't feel safe, if you're not able to reach for safety, it's really hard to do anything else. Our primitive brain will sacrifice anything and do anything to feel safe, to keep you safe. It loves you.
It does. So, Kathy, do you want me to be safe?
I do very much.
Why?
I care about you. I think you bring beautiful things in the world, and I want to do what I can to help you create in the world and enjoy life.
Okay, so there are things that you know that I want, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say that I was to be heading in a direction where you knew I was going to be violating something that was in my character, or I was going to be engaged in a way that would really diminish myself. What would you be willing to do to get my attention?
I'd be willing to do quite a bit. If you were in a place where you couldn't hear my logic and my reason, because I believe very much in consent, we believe in consent, but if you were in a place where you couldn't hear that, I would do things to stop you from going forward. I might take the tires off your car so you couldn't drive to town, or pull the gas out of the gas tank, or hide your keys, make it so you couldn't find them, or hide the map, or reprogram your GPS so it wouldn't even show the location of that place.
You beast!
Yes, and hide your wallet so you couldn't afford to get more gas. And make sure you didn't have
I want to.
I know. But if I really thought it was unsafe and that you weren't noticing or weren't hearing the unsafety of it, if you were making an illogical decision based on what I understood, I'd do a lot to try to keep you safe. And you probably, from your perspective, might think that I was insane or just demented and just trying to frustrate you all the time.
It's interesting. I feel hot.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that was like, what? wait a minute, I'm a free person. What are you doing? You're taking my keys. And I flashed to some of the things that I've done when friends were too drunk to make a good decision, and what I'd be willing to do. And that and more.
And it's not something that we would normally do with an adult person in our lives, but if we thought that person had lost their mind and we couldn't communicate with them, if we thought they were doing something that would really harm them, most of us would do a great deal to stop them.
Feeling this, and I hope that each of you listening and watching can feel this tension between my desire to move forward and my dear friend's desire for me to be safe, that there's a tension there. We've talked about it as the tug-of-war. We talked about it as the parking brake. And I wanted to make this real so that we start relating as if we're relating to a part of us that is as good-hearted as Kathy, but willing to take the tires off the car. If necessary.
Especially if I thought I was aware of a lot of things that you weren't aware of and I couldn't communicate that to you. I do firmly believe in people's right to choose, but our primitive brain has access to all kinds of information that as a conscious being we may not be aware of. It picks up subtle changes that we're not tuned into as we go through our daily life, and it's kind of looking around going like, hello, you didn't even look at this. I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to tell you what's going on, and you're not even listening. So if Rick was going to fly to Iraq and sell alcohol and pornography, I'd be like, did you not read the news? Don't go do this. This is dangerous. I will not let you go until you look at this data. And as a consent-loving being, if he knew the data and he, said this is what I need to do, I would love him enough to let him go. But our primitive brain is all the time trying to communicate with us, and some of its information may be out of date, so it may be being afraid about things that are not useful, but some of its data is really, really powerful and up to date, and when we won't listen, it's the most frustrating, frightening thing you can imagine. So we're talking about safety in a little bit different way than some of you might think about. It's not about controlling everything that happens, and that's one way our primitive brain can try to get us to be safe. We can try to constantly make sure that the doors are locked and the stove is off and the garage door is down. I have a sweet friend who likes to control things because that's the only way she knows how to feel safe. So we will often leave her house and she'll say, the garage door is down. I say, yes, the garage door is down. We'll drive around the block and she'll say, I need to check. And we'll come back and we'll look and we'll both say, the garage door is down. You see it's down. She's like, yes, okay, the garage door is down. And we'll get to the movie theater and she's like, oh my God, I can't remember. Are you sure it's down? Because her brain is looking to control the environment around her to try to keep her safe. And we can't control everything. There's too many variables. And when we get in that loop, we can really drive ourselves insane. And it takes so much energy, it's exhausting.
What's interesting there as you tell that story, I can feel her stress and distress, and I also can feel like her primitive brain has identified a friend who is willing to not make her wrong.
Yeah.
And yet is willing to guide her in the direction of what she wants, which is to be able to check and relax. And she's not there yet. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And I remember that there was a time when I was in Zumba class, and I wanted to get up on stage and join the instructor to lead the class.
Yeah.
And there were about 50 people in the class. And I was literally glued to my spot. And I started to use my willpower, and I started to fight that inner feeling. And I was being physical. I was moving, I was dancing, and so I had some energy moving, and willpower is an energy. And I remember as I started to take a step forward, I heard a message in my head. And that message was, no one wants to see you up there.
Oh.
And the energy just went away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting to me is that as I look at that moment in time, if I had gone up on stage and a single woman had looked at me with disgust, it would have derailed my future as a Zumba instructor. Because I was vulnerable in a way that wasn't healthy. There was actually a sense of rejection vulnerability in that moment.
Yeah.
And I can actually at this point thank my primitive brain for doing the only thing that it knew was going to get the wind out of my sails. I was building up the energy. I was going to do it. And it said something that just took the energy right away. And what was interesting is that as I firmed up my sense of myself, my place in the class, my sense of confidence inside of myself, as I started feeling connected to the tribe, not everyone there, but I had the people and I had the connections, I had literally created a sense of safety and resiliency. Mm-hmm. And when it was time to go up, I remember my primitive brain, it was the same voice. It said, it's time. And I got this burst of energy. I jumped up on stage. I didn't even use the stairs. Boom, there I was. And I followed her, and I did my thing, and I did the Zumba shuffle, and everyone is hooting and hollering, and we're having a great time because the timing was right. And I had done the prerequisites energetically. Yeah. And that, as someone who's lived with an inner critic for a lot of his life, I now look at it as, what if there were vulnerabilities and sensitivities that if I'd had tapping and coaching and a tribe, that I could have cleared up and solidified a lot faster, but at the time I really wasn't in the right place for that. Now you may be in the right place for that. This process, this connection that you have may be like the process when I was in Zumba class. It's going to start switching that voice to being, no one ever wants to see you up there, to, hey, let's practice dancing with other people. Let's practice engaging in ways that start building your resiliency.
Yeah.
Let's start developing your inner strength. Let's clear some of the traumas that really are like
before we jump in the deep end.
And then it moves forward. These are baby steps, but they can be made very fast. Anyone who's ever watched a baby knows that baby steps can happen so fast that you're not even sure
where did the kid go?
Where baby went. So we're going to be talking about that more and more. And
yeah. So to kind of anchor Rick's point, our primitive brain, if it feels like that we're not listening to it, and it thinks it's really important, it will love us enough to call us bad names or try to protect us by saying horrible things to us. And part of that is because it doesn't know how else to communicate. So if Rick was going to go to Iraq and he thought he really should sell alcohol and porn there, and he thought he was all excited about how much money he was going to make, because nobody does that there, and I felt like he wasn't hearing me about, do you know that's illegal and they can put you in jail forever for that? If he wasn't hearing me, I might say, hey, you idiot, are you listening to me? Which is something I would never...
Coming from Kathy, that would really get my attention.
Right. So it's a way of trying to get our attention. Realize that some of it may be based on stuff that's very, very long ago, if your primitive brain has been stuck in the past. And one of the things we'll talk about is, coming up we talk a lot about the inner child, the younger you. And someone asked, is that the primitive brain? Is the primitive brain this younger you? What it is an aspect of the primitive brain. It's also an aspect of our whole being. We'll talk about trauma and how we form trauma bubbles when something really bad happens. And it kind of freezes us. And there is an aspect in that bubble. There's part of it is the primitive brain and part of it is the rest of our being. But our primitive brain is very anchored to that, and it learns from those trauma bubbles. And it's still gathering information from those bubbles. Trauma bubbles are stored as present tense in our brain. There's no past tense into that subconscious part of our brain. So our primitive brain still is hearing them as tapes playing, but it doesn't realize they're tapes. It thinks that it's real right now, and it's going off that data right now. So what you're doing each time you tap, each time you build the connection between now and the primitive brain, with yourself and the primitive brain, you're giving it a stronger anchor to reality now, and letting it gain more and more data from what's happening now, and that's so powerful. And that lets you go from the safety
and a lot less confusing.
Yes. Well, it goes from safety as control, which we talked about, having to check that the garage door is down every time, trying to make sure the kids are safe and everybody's paying attention, doing what you think is safe, to I can handle what happens. So part of her fear may be the fact that she can't handle what would happen if someone got in her house. So, if she feels like she can't handle change or surprise or disappointment, she may be doing everything she can to prevent those. But human beings are sometimes surprised or disappointed. Things do happen sometimes, and there's not much, we can definitely take action and make our life, planned out and smooth, but when we're trying to avoid like we talk about the shoe dropping, when we try to remove all shoes from the universe so no shoe can drop, it's just exhausting and it's not going to work.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
So this week, it's about safety.
Yeah.
We're going to do some tapping on helping you feel more safe, adjusting your level of awareness from vigilant down to calm and confident, playing around with that. Some good stuff. We hope you'll listen and be sure to comment. Let us know what's coming up for you. You're helping to guide not only the Q&A calls, but how we're connecting to you. So please share with us. Thank you so much. It's great to have you.
You've been doing great, and we're so proud of you. Talk to you soon.